We are very delighted to have Comrade Prakash Karat to this program called TMJ Dialogues for Malabar Journal. Welcome, Comrade. So basically, I'm just going to ask you, as I told you some time back, see what the two issues of the Nehruvian legacy, and which you have pointed out as early as 1991, when the whole liberalization process was rolled out by the Congress, saying that whether the Congress is ready to uphold the Nehruvian legacy in terms of its economic policies. So, and if you look at the last 31 years experience, the Congress has never heeded to the warning which you have given. So how do you read this situation?
You see, the turn towards liberalization and an open market economy in 1991 took place in a particular juncture when internationally the Soviet Union had been dismantled and globalization of finance capital had become a dominant force. So in India also, the Indian ruling classes had decided that they cannot continue with the old model of capitalist development. The Nehruvian path was actually also a path for development of capitalism in India, but which wanted to utilize the state power and state intervention in the economy to build up the infrastructure and through the public sector, which would help the further development of capitalism.
Something called the welfare state or something.
The state, what is called also the state intervention model, the dirigiste model. But that after some time ran into crisis because in a country like India, where without land reform, without bringing in basic structural changes, the domestic market was not expanding to the extent where it could absorb products from, say, industry or industrial goods.
Or the rapid development of productive forces.
At the same time, there was also the increasing reliance on foreign capital. That also happened in the 1960s and 70s. So by the end of the 70s, this so-called Nehruvian model had run out of steam, you see. So the international situation was also such where it impelled the ruling classes to give up the old state intervention model, embrace the neoliberal model, which is that the state should get out of economic activities and leave it purely to the market and private investment. That has been pursued now for 3 decades. Nobody is arguing that we have to go back to the Nehruvian model. That was suitable for that particular age and period of our history. But there were certain elements of the Nehruvian model which should not have been abandoned, which is that in a country like India, you cannot develop the economy and the productive forces leaving it to the market and private investment, because that would lead to very distorted form of development and also concentration of wealth in a few hands. A degree of state intervention is required. Even if you are not going for socialism, even for a healthy development of capitalism, you would have had to have a degree of state intervention, and not only state intervention, also different forms of ownership of the means of production. What was called mixed economy in those days. Giving up that, and the logic of that would become that your economy becomes dominated by international finance capital. That is inescapable. Once you give up the model of having state intervention and certain degree of autonomy for your development, you become subject to the vagaries of international finance capital. Your policies then get dictated by that. So you see today also, any policy they feel if it may scare off the foreign institutional investment, not direct investment, even those who come into
Even the rating
share
agencies.
market. So accordingly, they will work out the policy. That is, you have become subordinate to the interests of international finance capital.
Basically a junior partner of international capital.
Well, yeah, you get integrated into that. Of course, it will be a junior position because you are not a very powerful economic country. So the whole experience of the 3 decades have shown that getting out of the old model and adopting the neoliberal model has proved to be harmful for the country and harmful for the economy also. So whatever you talk about economic growth, what is the type of growth you have had, what are the consequences of that type of growth, that we are experiencing today.
And as in the case of economy, now another critical juncture which has appeared, especially after the advent of the Hindutva forces, that is something, another legacy of Nehruvian, this thing was secularism. And in this case also, as in the case of economy, the Congress is not showing any kind of a firm character in terms of resisting this Hindutva, this thing. So how do you read this situation?
No, in the entire Nehruvian legacy, more than the Nehruvian path of development, today the Nehruvian legacy of secularism is more relevant according to me. Because that does not, is not confined to any particular period of our country's development. It is a basis for having a united India. It is a basis for ensuring that there is a unity within diversity. And that can be accomplished only if you have a secular state and secular constitutional setup. That has been more or less now given up under the BJP government for the last 8 years and the aggressive pursuit of the Hindutva agenda. So what we knew as secularism in the earlier period, starting from the Nehru's days, that secularism has more or less been abandoned by the ruling classes. That is also I mentioned by the ruling classes, not any party. So when the ruling classes itself are turning their back on secularism, you see its reflection on parties which are part of the ruling class. And the Congress party is also not immune from this. So you see this first a vacillation about secularism, then slowly a shift towards compromising with the anti-secular ideology and forces. That process is being undergone now, which is very bad for the country because once you undermine the principle of secularism in the state, I'm not talking about in society, now there is a state-sponsored desecularization of our country or society. In that, the Congress party today is not taking a clear-cut position. You see. I'll give you an example. Recently, the Gujarat government announced, the education minister announced that they will teach the Bhagavad Gita in government schools from class 6 to class 12. It will be in the syllabus of all government schools. The Congress party welcomed it. The main opposition in Gujarat has formally welcomed this decision. So it goes against the Constitution of India. The Constitution of India, Article 28 says, no religious instruction can be imparted in any state-funded and state-run institution.
Educational institutions.
State-run.
Yeah, state-funded.
So this is a government school is going to. So this is totally against the Constitution. The Congress party is not taking a position, they're supporting it. So this shows the shift away from secularism, the Congress party also. So that only helps the BJP because it creates a consensus around Hindutva. You see, it helps to establish the hegemony of the Hindutva ideology over the state also. This is the most dangerous thing according to.
Comrade, you said about this Hindutva ideology and the ruling class shifting their allegiance towards this idea? What is that prompted the ruling class?
I think what has happened is you saw this coming even before the 2014 election. The ruling classes have wanted a strong state, a unitary state, to serve their class interests. For example, our country's big bourgeoisie or big capitalists, they want a strong centralized state, you see, and preferably a strong leader also in the state. And they identified Modi as that leader and the BJP as that party which can bring this. If you recall, Modi, when he was Chief Minister of Gujarat, used to hold this vibrant Gujarat summits where all the top industrialists and businessmen of India would gather, including foreign businessmen. And in that, if you look at the 2013
Campaign
and 2012 summits, the speeches made by all the top honchos of big business, they openly said, here's the man we want as the Prime Minister. He'll make the ideal Prime Minister. Whether it is Ambani, whether it is Birla, whether it is Tata, all of them started hailing him as the leader they want for the country. So, already the momentum had built up for the ruling classes to have an alliance with the Hindutva forces. Today there is no big business house which does not openly support Modi, and some have gone even to the extent of going to Nagpur and
paying
obeisance to Bhagwat, including Ratan Tata, you see, including Shiv Nadar, who is the HCL. The list is long, I don't want to go into it. So that means the ruling classes of our country are providing the necessary backing and support now for the Hindutva forces. This is what gives them the real power and strength today.
On the one hand, as you said, the top honchos of the ruling class is supporting the Hindutva. And the other hand, you also mentioned something about one of your articles, the kind of authoritarian populism which is getting coming.
No, I don't use the word populism. Populism is used by Western political scientists to brand anything radical. Of course, you can have radical right, but all the left leaders who have come, like Chavez in Venezuela, this is a populist. Yeah, it's a very simplified understanding. Authoritarianism, yes. Both the big bourgeoisie of our country and the RSS want an authoritarian state. That converges. As I said, the stronger, unified authoritarian state they feel is better for business, better for the capitalists. So that convergence is there. So the casuality, neoliberalism and Hindutva together have created what we have today, you see. A ruling class which is now subscribing, if not openly subscribing, going along with Hindutva, and the Hindutva forces are utilizing their state power to reshape the Indian Republic. That is the danger we are facing today.
Last question is that there is always a kind of a confusion or whatever it is about this character, whether it is a authoritarian state as you mentioned, or it is a kind of a fascistic state as it's evolving. And
see, the term fascism has some specific connotations. If India has become a fascist state, it has all sorts of other implications. We have not become a fascist state yet. What we have is an authoritarian state under which fascist trends are growing. Fascist trends grow through mass movements also.
Yeah, it always have a mass movement.
It's not takeover from the top. Fascism also is sustained or grows through mobilizing people and masses. So there's no doubt today that you have fascistic forces rising in our country, and The ruling classes today do not require fascism in the state. Their interests are served without fascism. Their interests are served, they have a parliament, they have a bureaucracy, they have a judiciary, they have everything which is not in any way creating any problem for them, for serving the class interest. So why do you need fascism?
Not the 1940...
Within the facade of democracy, within the facade of the constitution, they're able to operate within and serve their aims. The fascistic forces are there like a attack dog, which starts attacking whenever required to put down their, or who they consider are their threats to them.
Thank you very much.